Every angler has a moment or two they would like to frame forever. It feels like spotlights are beamed on you and the fish. Everything else blurs into the background and being at peace in the moment. Those are the nice memories. Then they become a story. My name is Ayato Otsubo from Kyoto, Japan. Now a fishing guide of Queenstown, New Zealand. And this is my story. I took up fishing when I was 4 years old. It started on a father and son day out. I caught a 16 inches long barbel, and I was hooked, so to speak. I was born with glycogen storage disease. It restricted me from hard exercise in my youth. Fishing became my choice of hobby. Since I came to New Zealand in '95, I progressed my fly fishing skills and became more of an angler. One summer holiday, I took a road trip down south, visited the township of Gore, with the infamous Mataura River running through it. The Mataura River originates in the Ia Mountains, south of Lake Wakatipu, and flows southeast through the pasture land for about 120 miles, then flows out to the sea. It is known for holding large numbers of mid-sized brown trout, about 2 to 6 pounds. I met an old fishing guide through his grandson's introduction. His name was Bert Harvey. He was 82 years old and the oldest fishing guide in the Gore at the time. He was known as the man who caught a model trout for the famous brown trout statue of Gore. When I met Bert for the first time, he kindly offered to take me fishing, even though I could not afford his guiding fees on the poor student pocket. Back then, I considered myself as a good angler. I thought I could catch my share of fish anywhere. Despite my confidence, I could not catch a single fish on the first morning with him. In my frustration, I said to Bert, "Well, those fish are asleep today." Bert replied,
"Son, you're just not fishing right."
I was a little confused and said, "This is how I catch a fish anywhere else. Why is that not right?" Bert shakes his head and replies,
"Well, I bet you won't catch a fish all day."
So we settled on betting a beer on our way home. I kept on fishing for a while, but sure enough, I didn't catch anything. I was so confused, walked back to him and said, "Okay, you win, but can you?" He said yes. He threw his driftwood walking stick away, grabbed his rod, and 2 casts later he hooked up and landed a nice-looking 2-pound brown trout.
How about that?
Well, that was a fluke.
You reckon?
With a big grin on his face, he turned around, had another 2 casts, and caught another one in front of me. With a deflated ego and great confusion in my head, I asked Bert, "What's the difference?" He turned around, smiled and said,
The river talks to me.
"River talks to you?" This is sort of the line you would expect from Yoda in Star Wars, not from a fishing guide. Bert was a likable chap, but a man of few words. Typical New Zealand southern man. I was completely puzzled. However, I got the message. River talks to me has an underlining meaning to it. Despite my confusion, we kept on fishing for the day. Bert's favorite rod was at least 12 years old, and the chunk of cork grip was missing from an incident when a rat chewed on his rod one night outside of a mountain hut somewhere. I offered to give Bert some of my lines and trying to get him the latest rod, but he says, "No thanks, I don't need it." He also says, "Son, an old rod is like a woman you have been with for a long time. The longer you stay together, you get to know the knack and the kinks of it, and it becomes a part of you. I am not denying the technology, but I'm just cheap." I laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed and left the conversation there. This summer fishing trip to Gore became my annual event. I progressed my catch rate on each trip. On my third trip down, over a beer talk one night, Bert whispered, "I think the river started to talk to you." I still was puzzled about it, but left Gore happy after a few good days of fishing. Two years later, I graduated from college and moved to Queenstown, 2 hours northwest of Gore. Queenstown is known as the adventure capital of the world, known for its beauty, adventure, and fun. That summer, I was really busy with new work, and I couldn't go see Bert, even though I was living much closer to him than ever before. Mid-March of that year, on one afternoon, I was fishing the Upper Mataura River. I cast my line out of instinct to the area I wasn't paying much attention to, and caught a nice fish. I looked back to the river, and I felt something was out of place. So I sat down, had a cup of tea, looking at the river shining in the autumn sun. Halfway down my cup of tea, I clicked. It was like a light bulb getting lit in my head for the first time, with a huge endorphin rush through the entire body. I stood up, whispered to myself, "This is it. Now the river talks to me." Now I am a fishing guide. I get asked the same question I used to ask Bert on a regular basis. I tell my friends and clients that the essence of river talks to me is in my word of river crafting. Basically, you need to understand the river, how the current drifts, as well as understanding the fish's behavior and their diets. In modern day fly fishing, we love sight fishing. it brings hunting elements to fishing. When you can see the fish swaying and rising in the current and taking your fly, it is visual and very exciting. Till this moment, I always was focused on looking for a fish, or casting to obvious spots. I dare say, I caught a lot of fish doing that as well. However, Bert's lesson was to look at the river instead of the fish. Take your time. Look for a spot where the fish prefer to sit in. Eventually, you start finding the well-camouflaged fish you would have missed otherwise. Generally, those fish are a little more relaxed and a lot easier to catch. Easy for me to tell you, but the essence of river talks to me is not something that can be taught easily. It is an earned rite of passage for each and every anglers for their time spent on the water. And it is the mutual friendship between you and the river. After figuring out the secret, I went to see Bert in May. I was going to surprise him and didn't call him. When I got to his house, it was locked and didn't look like anyone had been there for a while. His neighbor told me that he had passed away during the summer. All I wanted to tell him was, "Bert, I've got it!" but didn't get a chance. I got over initial shock and condolence. I caught up with Bert's daughter Lynda and told her Bert's will. He suspected his family would sell all his fishing gears off when he was gone. He didn't care any of that. But he didn't want his beloved rod to go to anyone who didn't understand fishing. So I asked Lynda what happened to his number one rod. She quietly opened the last page of Bert's photo album. There was a photo of his coffin with his rod crossed on top. And she told me they cremated the rod with him. I turned around and told her how glad I was, and the huge weight had just been lifted off my shoulders. She was in tears. Bert had a heart of gold and touched many souls over the years of fishing. He taught fishing to anyone willing to learn, and he passed a huge lesson on to us. Now it's our turn to pass it on to the next generation of anglers. I tell every client and friend this story of Bert and the river talks to me, with my greater understanding of his words. Well, at least that's what I think he told me. He may be up there looking down on me in frustration and saying, "Well, that's not what I meant." If you ever come to Queenstown, New Zealand, swing by. Come have a chat. I'm always up for a cup of tea and the fishing gossip. If you want to go talk to the river, come fish with me.